Hi everyone, it's Tammy with Shabby Fabrics. Today I am here to show you a really fun quilt for Christmas. This is called Words of Christmas Wreath Quilt. I love how it has all the bows on the wreaths. We could not resist putting these fun, glittery red bows. What is Christmas is glitter and glitz and bling, and we could not resist this beautiful ribbon. Look at this perfect bow. Now, I do not tie this by hand. I use the Shabby Fabrics bow maker. I'm going to show you how to tie a bow, so every single one of your bows will be perfect. This is very fun. It's easy and it's fast, and you're going to love this for everything. Tie bows for everything. Okay, before we get to that, let me show you how to make this block. So we started with the Words of Christmas panel. This is by Block Party Studios. And the words are printed, the blocks are printed on point. So what we did, and this one I've already cut a bunch off of. You can see this is not a complete panel. So we used a Perfect 5 ruler, and I'm just going to show you how I do this. So on this panel, you will see how there are little marks right here. You can ignore those marks or use those marks. We tended to kind of ignore them. When we're cutting this with a Perfect 5 ruler, and I put this on here, you can see how I'm over my mark right here. My mark is here. It's set in. Here I don't even see the mark. That's okay. It doesn't matter. As long as your panel, your word, is centered on there, that's what matters. And that's all I'm looking at. All right, so I'm going to use the Perfect 5 ruler, a sharp blade of my rotary cutter, and this rotating spinning mat by Creative Grids. And we're going to cut and turn. Now I'm holding the ruler because I knew this panel was going to get caught on things. And cut again. So I'm being very careful not to cut deeply up into my other blocks like this. And then the last one. We can cut here and back around. So you can see how a Perfect 5 ruler really makes it easy to cut a 5-inch block. Instead of trying to use a ruler that generally have 1/2 inch on them, like a 6.5 inch ruler is what you'd have to use. A Perfect 5 works very well. Okay, so once I have my blocks cut, I'm going to set this aside. I should also mention, look at this beautiful backing for this quilt. This is gorgeous. It's got the glitz of gold in it with the poinsettias. It is amazing backing. It was perfect for this quilt. So if you're looking to make a fun Christmas quilt, head to the website, pick up your kit. So in your kit, you will receive a spool of the beautiful ribbon and your panel from Block Party Studios and all the fabric that you need to make the quilt behind me, including the binding. All right, so once we have our blocks cut, we're going to put them together with the rectangles, just like this. Now this block, I chose this fabric because it is directional, and I wanted to show you how to work with a directional fabric in here. So this block in our quilt is this one right here. It's the Hope block. All right, so we have our deer are going this way. Your panel is canted sideways because when you get it done, the block is going to go like this. All right, so I've sewn this on here. And I just press to the grain, okay? All right, so I'm gonna set that right up here so we can keep our eyes on that. Because the next thing we need to do is we need to take a square and cut this in half on the diagonal. Now, if we cut this in half on the diagonal this way, when this gets attached to the block, you see how my deer are now sideways? And then the bottom one See how they're canted sideways? If you like that, you can cut it like that. Or we cut it like this, and now my deer are more right side up. So when the block is like this, now my deer are right side up. That's the way I chose to do this. All right. So we're going to cut our block in half, corner to corner, right here. I'm going to use a long ruler to do that. I have a 2.5 by 24.5 inch by Creative Grids. This is one of my favorite rulers to use in the sewing room. It's perfect for cutting binding because it's 2.5 inches wide. It is wonderful. All right, so I chose to cut my block like this. Let's take a look again. I can confirm that that is correct. All right, so now how do we get that on there? Well, let's take a look. I'm going to find the center of my triangle. I'm just going to put a crease here. You can take a friction pen and just make a small mark. I can see that right there on the gold. You can also just take and put a pin there so that you know where the center of your block is, like that. All right, so let's find the center of this one as well. Like that. And I'm going to make a little friction mark there. I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom one. While I'm at it, I just need to find the center of this so that I can make sure that I am centering this triangle on this block. And let's do this one as well. I'm just going to use a pin for this one. There we go. All right, here we go. This is what I want the block to look like. So now I'm just going to fold this over, right sides together. I'm going to take my pin out and match these points. Like this. All right, and I'm just going to put a couple of pins in this, not a lot. I'm definitely going to pin the end of this triangle. I want you to note how this does not come to the end of the block. You can see the triangle ends here. It also starts in a little bit. That's okay. We're going to trim this up when we get done, and that way the block will be perfect and fit in the quilt. All right, get another pin in here, one more, I think, to hold that corner where I want it to be, just like that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pin this one on, and then we'll go sew this at the machine. All right, so let's take our pins out and get this pressed. And we're going to get this block squared up before we do anything more to it. All right, heat that seam up a little bit and then finger press it open. Looks good. Same thing on the other side. There we go. All right. All right, now I have this weird looking block. Let's fix that. I'm going to use a Creative Grids 12.5 inch square. I love the Creative Grids rulers because they have a lot of lines to help you line things up. The one that I'm going to be looking at the most right now is first the diagonal, second this little bullseye straight here in the center of this ruler. I love that. So when I put this on here, I know that the center of the block, I want the center right here on my white squares. So this white line, I'm going to move this ruler around. See how I can shift it back and forth here. I'm going to move it around until I get it exactly lined up here. Then the same thing is going to happen for the horizontal line. This horizontal white line needs to line up. I need to shift this down just a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I have this white line is going right here through the center, and this white line is coming right here, straight through the center down. So I know this ruler is exactly lined up in the center of this block. Perfect, exactly where I want it. Rotary cutter, spinning mat, here we go. And I'm just lightly hanging on to this ruler in the center. I don't think it's going to move, but I don't trust it. I don't want it to move. I want it to stay right there. There we go. Perfect. And there's our block, just like that. Perfect. All right. So now let's talk about what we do next. So I'm going to put snowball corners in the corners. Here's one that we did ahead of time. So you can see, I'm going to turn this over. So you can see we just snowballed the corners. That's all I did to make this a wreath, right? To make it look like a circle. All right, so I'm going to take a square, and we can do this a couple of different ways. The first way I'm going to show you is we're just going to draw a line from corner to corner on the back of the square. We've all done this. We've done sew and flip, right? This is normal. You place it on this corner, and I'm going to make sure that I'm exactly in my corner and that these points both line up, these edges are even. There we go. All right, and I'm just going to put a couple of pins in this. I'm just going to pin this outside edge because I don't want it to move. I want it to stay right there. Okay, that's one way to do it. Sew corner to corner. Another way to do it is to use a Creative Grids corner clipper. I love the folded corner clipper for large corners like this. So for this, I'm going to put this in the corner, just like this. And I know that I want to cut this part away, correct? We're going to sew corner to corner, cut this away. Well, let's take our corner clipper. Let's cut that away first, then sew it, then press it. Then you don't have to draw the line. I like that even better, right? Now we're saving even more time. So this is a 3.5 inch square. So I'm going to take the 3.5 inch mark and line it up right on the bottom. The other thing that's lining up is this little line right here. This line right here is lining up right on the edge of my fabric. I have that exactly lined up where I want it, and I'm just going to cut that. Okay, so now I'm going to pin this a little bit different, but I'm definitely pinning this on here. There we go. There is one additional way we can do this. We're going to use the diagonal seam tape by Cluck Cluck Sew. This is a great product. If you don't want to draw the lines and you're nervous about cutting this ahead of time, I get that. I would put this on here like this. I'm going to go ahead and pin it, but we have this tape is installed on the machine. So what we did was it's very sticky. We clean the bed of the sewing machine first with like an alcohol wipe or a lens cleaner like for your glasses. Clean that off to get all the oil off. And then I laid that tape on there perfectly. And I will show that to you when I get to the machine. And we're going to sew with that. I'll do that one first so that you can see that. All right, let's go do that. Okay, so this is the tape I have installed on the machine. And you can see this is my 1/4 inch. This is a 1/4 inch on the left side of my foot, 1/4 inch on the right side of my needle. not the foot, on the needle. The red mark is right where the needle is. That's showing me that's where my needle is sewing. So I want to sew corner to corner. So I'm going to put my needle down and place this right there. Now I can rotate my fabric down here until this corner is exactly on that line. Okay, so let's take a stitch onto this. Okay, now I'm going to rotate my fabric so my corner is right here. And now as I sew, I'm just going to make sure this corner tracks all the way up this red line right here. That's where my eyes are focused. I'm not looking at the needle anymore. I'm looking right here. Here we go. Perfect. See how that came out? That worked exactly like I wanted it to. Okay, now let's sew the one I did with the folded corner clipper. This one, we're just going to take our 1/4 inch mark and already my 1/4 inch is already cut. So I'm just going to run this. My 1/4 inch is right here. I'm just going to run straight along that line. And again, I'm just going to start on the line. I'm going to sew ever so slightly to the right side of the line, just ever so slightly. So I'm sewing next to the line, not right on the line. All right, let's take out our pins and let's press this out. Let's see how we did. All right, so the first one, let's press out the one I did with a folded corner clipper. So we would just simply press and go. And I really like that. So what I'm looking for when I press now, what I'm looking for is I want this edge to exactly be even with both sides of this block. And it is, you can see that. All right, this one without the line, this is the one we did with the Cluck Cluck Sew Tape. So this one, because I'm just a little paranoid sometimes, I'm not going to cut this until I press it. So I'm going to press this first, and I'm going to make sure that it is exactly where I want it. And it is, look at that. That looks great. Same thing with this one down here. This is the one that I drew the line and sewed next to the line. Here we go. I'm going to fold that over, and it is perfect too. So all three methods work. Just pick whichever one works best for you, or try something new. All right, so once I get that done, then I'm going to want to trim that. I can use the corner clipper to trim my 1/4 inch because I know this is a 1/4 inch. So that solid line is my 1/4 inch. So let's just use that to trim our 1/4 inch away. I would save these half square triangles for another project. I have a whole bunch of them saved at home. I'm going to use them just to do a half square triangle quilt one day. There we go. Just like that. You add a 4th one, and then you have your block is finished, just like this. All right? So that's how we make the block. So I'm going to clean this up. I'm going to grab my bow maker, and now we're going to have some fun making a perfect bow. I'll be right back. All right, here we go. This is the fun part. So this is the Shabby Fabrics Bow Maker. I love this tool. Now, when we do the angel pin cushions or the little angels, they have these little teeny tiny bows that are on their neck. Those are hard for me to tie. I'm not a good bow tire. So then I would move my 2 sticks close together. So then you're just going to loop around these 2 so you're making a very tiny little bow. But for this project, there we go. I'm going to move it over here. So I have 3 holes between this. That's the size of bow that I want to make. You would probably want to experiment with how big you want your bows to be. I felt that this was the right size for the project. So that's what I'm going to show you today is this. You have 10 yards of ribbon in your kit, all right? So this is wired ribbon. So wired ribbon has a little tiny wire in the top and the bottom. So when you fold it, it stays folded, okay? It's very easy to work with. It's very forgiving. I love wired ribbon because when I curve something around, it stays like that. I like that. However, do not use your good scissors to cut wired ribbon. You're going to want to cut with very old scissors. Don't use your rotary cutter unless you have an old blade in there, all right? I just want to remind you, don't do that. The minute you hit that wire, you'll remember if you have your good cutter. All right, so what I did was I cut a 32-inch piece of ribbon. And I did measure these out, and I did cut these. So I've cut 9 32-inch pieces of ribbon. I just have a couple of them done today. And then I cut 9 8-inch pieces of ribbon. The 8-inch piece of ribbon is going to be used for the center of the bow. So for that, I don't want this giant loop, right, in the center of my bow because the bow's too small for that. So what I did was I folded this into thirds, like this. I just folded this like that, and it just kind of stays like this. All right, so it's just folded into thirds. I'm just going to set this here so it's ready. Okay, you're going to need a couple of wonder clips. I'm just going to grab 2 or 3 here because one always shoots across the room on me. Okay, so I have my ribbon and it has a wrong side. I think this is the wrong side and this is the right side. If you like this side better, make it the right side. Doesn't matter. It's whichever side you like the best. I like this side the best. So I'm going to fold my ribbon, wrong sides together, and I'm going to crease it just to mark it. Now that mark is for my visual reference only. All right, I'm not really using it for anything other than my visual reference when I put this on the bow maker like this. So when I start to put this on here, I want to make sure that mark is in the center of my 2 sticks here. Like that. All right, you can see it's basically in the center. I'm going to wrap around. I'm going to come back around on it like this. And now I'm going to grab my ends and I'm going to clip them. 1 and 2. All right, let go. All right, now we have this weird looking bow here. Trust me, it's going to be cool. All right, we take our little piece of ribbon that we folded into thirds. Remember for our center knot? We're going to put this all the way around it, under and over, like this, right? So this is what it looks like from the front. This is what it looks like from the back. I'm going to work on the back. I'm actually going to turn this over like this because I find it's easier to tie it this way. That bow's not going anywhere. So we're going to tie it like this. Okay? Still looks kind of a mess, I know. Hang in there with me. Let's take the wonder clips off. I'm going to lift the bow completely off of the bow maker now. Just like this. Now, I'm going to tighten this down. Now I can really get in here and tighten that knot and tie it a second time. There we go. That's what I want to do. Just like that. And I'm just going to let these ties, see, I can maneuver these because they have a wire in them. So I just want them to be horizontal with the bow, right? I don't want them to stick out. I don't want those extra tails sticking out. All right, let's turn it over to the front. Now we get to have fun. Now I'm going to open these up. I'm going to fluff out my corners like this. Can nest one inside the other, just like that. Let's do the same on this side. Stick my fingers in there, That wired ribbon is so nice. Look at that. That is so cute. All right, now I want you to look at the tails. You can see how the tails is the wrong side of the ribbon. This is the right side. I want the right side showing. So I'm going to grab a hold of this right here, put my fingers up tight. I'm just going to give it a hard twist. I'm just going to twist it around. There we go. See that? And because it has wire in it, it stays right where I tell it to. I like that too. All right, I'm going to do the same thing on this side. And now I have a perfect little bow. I'm going to tuck his end in there. Fluff him out. Just like that. How cute is that? Now, make a bunch of little bows for your quilt. I just took a hand needle and heavier thread, and I just attached them to the back with a few stitches. I didn't want to attach them a lot because when I store the quilt, I'm going to take the bows off, I'm going to store the bows in a small box, and then I can wrap or fold the quilt and store it away for the season. Then when I get the quilt out again next year, I'll steam it out and then take my bows and I'm just going to fluff them up with that wired ribbon. They'll be just perfect next year and you'll be able to use them again and again. So thank you so much for joining me today for the Words of Christmas Wreath Quilt. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, learned a couple of things about directional fabric, squaring up some blocks, and most importantly, how to dress up your quilt with the bow maker. I'll see you next time on a Shabby Fabrics tutorial.